Week 3 on DraftKings was a disappointment. We'll talk about what went wrong and get you ready for Week 4 with a full cash game and GPP lineup, as well as tell you the biggest news that broke today, all coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lee.
And I'm Michael Kurtzman, and we are the Fantasy Football Consultants. Eric, Week 3 was a disappointment.
Yeah.
What went wrong?
Well, a lot went wrong. I guess let's start on a positive note. There's a few guys that at least returned value for us. Who are those guys?
So our studs were Calvin Ridley with 19.7 points, DeAndre Hopkins with 26.7, and Jarrett McKinnon with 16.7.
Yeah, and honestly, those guys could have all three done even better than they did. Ridley and Hopkins came close to scoring touchdowns and came up a little short. And Jarrett McKinnon got a touchdown reverse. And Jeff Wilson, what's the idea with your Niners running Jeff Wilson in for 2 touchdowns?
I don't know, man. That was really annoying to watch too. Not as a Niners fan, but as an FFC person, it was hard.
All right, we got to get to it, Michael. Why?
On a less positive note, the duds were Cam Newton with 12.1 points, Deontay Johnson with 0.9, and Darren Waller with 2.9.
Yeah, so we have an out on the Deontay Johnson. I mean, the Steelers did great. Roethlisberger had a big game. The problem was Deontay Johnson was in the training room because he had a concussion, and that happened in the first half. So he got less than a point. So that really hurts when you get a key scorer go down early in a game. So let's talk a little bit about Cam Newton. So I learned 2 key lessons here for the rest of the season with Cam Newton and the New England Patriots. The first lesson I learned is you're going to have to assess what type of game it's going to be. Do you think it's going to be a game in which the Patriots expect that they will have to play from behind and be forced to throw? Or do you think it's a game in which they'll be up and they will be working to bleed the clock by running the ball a lot? Well, I thought, and I was wrong, I thought the Raiders, coming off that big game on Monday night against the Saints, I thought that they would be able to keep this game very close. But they came in with an injured Jacobs and an injured Waller. Neither, I think, that were at 100%. And the Patriots just ran the ball. But here's the second thing that was so frustrating. They completely changed their philosophy when they got around the goal line. The first 2 games of the year, it was all about running the ball with Cam Newton, Michael. They didn't do anything else. They had a fullback in, and he blocked with Cam Newton. Rex Burkhead, who was healthy in Week 1 and Week 2, didn't even see the ball. But this game, 2 short rushing TDs by Rex Burkhead. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's just it's really unfortunate to see, but that's also another thing that's Belichick. He's a scheme master, and I guess running with Rex Burkhead was just a better scheme than Cam Newton.
Speaking of being a scheme master, he schemed masterfully against Darren Waller. We talked about it on the show. We had people talking about it in the comment section that Belichick does a good job of taking away your best weapon, and the Raiders' best weapon is absolutely Darren Waller. I just fell in love with him because I thought his price was so much lower. But not only that, he was injured, Michael. He was not 100%. And when you play cash games, a lesson for us to remind us to follow our own rules on NFL DFS. When you play cash games and a guy is coming off an injury and you think he might not be 100%, go elsewhere.
Quick note that I would like to say about last week. Our total points were 107.58 round up. So basically 108 points last week for those of you guys in the comment section that want to know.
Congratulations to the 4 qualifiers for Week 3 for picking our contest correctly. Remember, what we're doing is a qualifying contest so you can participate in Week 11 and Week 12 a DraftKings contest where you'll fill out a full lineup, and whoever finishes number 1 out of all the people who qualify will take home $50. Then we do it again the following week for another $50. But you got to qualify. So if you haven't qualified yet, we now have 12 qualifiers for 3 weeks. Here's the contest this week. One of the things that we're doing is we're giving you these challenges because these are the type of things that you need to do when you construct a lineup. So one thing you often need to do is figure out a low-cost tight end that's going to return a lot of value. So that's our contest today. It's got to be a tight end on the main slate, and he has to have a DraftKings price of less than $5,000. Go for it. Pick your number 1 choice, and then in case of a tiebreaker, pick your number 2 choice. And then don't forget to put your DK username. It's not a valid submission if you don't have your DK username. So Michael, what you should not do in that contest is pick, even though he's under $5,000, Jonnu Smith as your tight end. If you guys haven't heard the big news is due to the health situation that's been going on in our society over the last 6 months and a bunch of positive tests, they have postponed the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Tennessee Titans game. So you should not have any Tennessee Titan or any Pittsburgh Steeler in your lineup. So we won't. Let's go to the DraftKings studio.
Well, Eric, as you all know, we are going to go with running backs first. After all, they are the most predictable position out of all of them. And for running back number 1, we are going with David Johnson. Over the past 3 games, he has averaged 15 touches a game, 70 yards, and a touchdown. Minnesota has a terrible run defense that has been put on display for the past 3 weeks.
Keep in mind, Houston has had a killer difficult schedule the first 3 games. Kansas City, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh, all games where the game script was that Houston was behind. Now they are back at home and they are favored by 4.5 points. I think that here's the thing to note, and this is very important when you're looking at NFL DFS. When you have a guy who's clearly the guy, and Duke Johnson in the last 2 games has been out. Since then, David Johnson has gotten 24 of the 25 running back carries on Houston. So he's the guy. And guess what? Now they play a Minnesota team that just cannot stop anybody. Not the pass, not the run. And I expect to see David Johnson getting into both. Now, if his brother, Duke Johnson, I'm joking, I know David Johnson and Duke Johnson are not brothers. If he comes back, we might pivot off this. We'll see. But it's something we will watch for to see if Duke Johnson is healthy. So we'll dial up for now David Johnson in our lineup. And joining him at just $200 more is Darrell Henderson. This is right out of our NFL DFS masterclass. Everything that you want for a running back, Darrell Henderson gives you. Darrell Henderson is at home. He is favored, a monster favorite, 13-point favorite. His implied total is an absurd 30 points, right? So I want to talk about this New York Giant team. By the way, the New York Giant team, how have they done so far this year against running backs? Well, in week 1, they let Snell from the Pittsburgh Steelers, hardly a good running back, run for 113 yards against them. In week 2, David Montgomery, 127 yards plus a TD. And then last week, no offense to your 49ers, but these are your 3rd and 4th string running backs you were throwing out there, Jerick McKinnon and Jeff Wilson. They combined for 146 yards and 3 TDs. So 3 for 3 in getting exposed, the New York Giants. And I think the Rams, Darrell Henderson is going to be doing the same. Now, I have one caveat, Michael. It's again the caveat of Cam Akers. Is Cam Akers going to come back and potentially eat in? So we have this caveat for both Henderson and Johnson, but I want to make sure everybody understands this. We would have no problem switching over to Mike Davis if either Cam Akers or Duke Johnson plays. It's a great pivot for us. Mike Davis has been doing his little Christian McCaffrey impersonation, at least in the air, 2 straight weeks of 8 catches, and he faces an Arizona team that's up-tempo in play.
And now for wide receivers. We decided that we were going to go with Devontae Parker as our wide receiver number 1. He's got a lot of qualities that you might like. Seattle is allowing the most points in the entire NFL to wide receivers. Seattle also has a top 3 offense and a bottom 3 defense. That's the perfect scenario for an opposing team's number 1 wide receiver. They're going to be behind all game. They're going to have to throw. It's the perfect recipe.
Yeah, I admit it. I'm a big Seahawk fan. Everybody says how bad their defense is, but they're actually not perfectly correct when they say their defense is bad. Their run defense actually has been pretty good this year. It's their passing defense, which is why we think Devontae Parker is going to be able to take full advantage at a very reasonable 5,700. That has been terrible. He came back from injury last week. Plus, he basically got a mini bye because they played Thursday. So he's going to be well rested and ready to go.
And for wide receiver number 2, we went with Keenan Allen. What's there not to love about Keenan Allen? He has the most targets in the NFL. Well, he's tied with DeAndre Hopkins, but still, the most targets in the NFL. With Justin Herbert alone, in 2 games, he has been targeted 29 times. If that was prorated over an entire season, that would shatter the NFL record. And that's about 190 targets. That's absurd. He's also 3rd in catches. So this isn't just a guy that gets targeted a lot and doesn't catch the ball. He's 3rd in catches. Tampa Bay doesn't have a shutdown corner, so that shouldn't take away from anything. And he's 11th in pricing for a top 5 fantasy wide receiver.
Yeah, and that Tampa Bay defense is much better against the run. And so I think Herbert, who has thrown for 300 yards in both of his 2 starts, I think they're going to have any success. It's going to be passing, and it's going to be Keenan Allen.
All right, Eric. So who did we choose for wide receiver number 3?
Well, thank you, Michael. You were actually economical. Normally, you're like a kid in the candy store spending all kind of money, like a drunken sailor. But Devontae Parker and Keenan Allen were reasonable costs. So I'm going to take advantage of that and spend a little bit more money. And the guy I'm going to get is for $6,700. There's a bunch of very intriguing guys at $6,700 between the 2 Coopers, Kupp and Amari. But I'm going to go with the guy who was in the top 5 targets last year, Allen Robinson. Michael, in every game this year, Allen Robinson has gotten the most targets on this Chicago team. And now getting targets has never been his issue. His issue is, as you see in week 2, sometimes he doesn't have a good catch percentage. I'm here to tell you, it's not Allen Robinson's fault. Guess whose fault it is, Michael?
Mitchell Trubisky. But that fault is eradicated because Nick Foles replaced him.
Yes, and we are excited about that. He connected with Allen Robinson for his touchdown last week. Look, Indianapolis defense is good, so I don't want to try to give a rosy picture of this. But remember, we've only had 3 weeks, and the quarterbacks they've gone up against has been Minshew, Cousins, and Sam Darnold.
For tight end, we decided to go with Logan Thomas. This is just a great sort of budgety pick. Baltimore has the best pair of corners in the league. And tight ends do extremely well against them because they can't throw to their two best receivers. So they have to throw to someone else. So they'll just throw to their tight end. Tight ends against Baltimore have the third most targets. And he has the 20th lowest salary despite the massive amount of targets and the great matchup that he's versing.
So what you want is, A, targets, as Michael said. This guy is he's in the top two. He's either led his team or second on his team in targets every game this year. And secondly, he is looked around the goal line. Michael, do you know he's second in inside the 10 targets of all tight ends, tied for second so far this year? That is amazing, given his bargain basement $3,500 price. I don't know what DraftKings is doing, keeping him this low a price when he's had this consistent targets each week, but we're going to take advantage.
Yeah, and also whatever they're doing, just keep leaving Logan Thomas this low, and we will keep using him.
Michael, 5,400 is the average amount that we have left to spend. So guess what? Not really going to be a realistic option for us to go with a Lamar Jackson and sadly, or a Russell Wilson. So save us some money. Where are we going here at quarterback?
All right, I've got a interesting pick for you. Ryan Fitzpatrick for $5,400. Seattle has allowed the second most fantasy to quarterbacks this year. Ryan Fitzpatrick is 24th lowest salary. And the middle tier quarterback returns the most value for their price. You want a middle, and what you're specifically looking for if you want the highest return is a middle tier quarterback going against a very forgiving passing defense like the Seahawks. So, and not to mention that the Seahawks have a top 3 offense and they're going to be behind all game. So Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to have to throw the ball all game. And maybe he can hook up to Devontae Parker.
Yeah, we don't look to stack in cash games, but we're not going to go away from it if we think that there's a good value. And boy, do we think there's a good value for both Ryan Fitzpatrick and Devontae Parker in a fantastic matchup. We already talked about it. 32 out of 32, the Seahawks pass defense. And note, they actually are pretty good against the run. So I think that Miami is going to have to pass. And he's sneaky good, Michael, with his legs. You know, it's not like a Cam Newton where they do design runs, but he'll scramble out of pressure and run for that first down. So you can count on a few points for him via the ground.
Yeah, and just to add on what you were saying, over the past 3 weeks, he's had 15 rush attempts and 1 touchdown. So you can expect to see that he'll maybe get around 5 rush attempts every game, which can really boost up your point total.
I want to point out someone. We're going to go with Ryan Fitzpatrick, and we're excited about it. But if for any reason you're uncomfortable with that, but you wanted to save money at quarterback, our projection software also likes Drew Brees. Drew Brees, it's not often, Michael, that Drew Brees will be only $5,800 in a very good matchup against a Detroit Lion team that doesn't have a good defense. Also, throw into the fact that, yes, he's on the road. Normally, New Orleans doesn't do well on the road, but he's playing in a dome in which there's going to be no fans. So it's almost like a home game for Drew Brees. And most importantly, he probably, at the time of filming, will get Michael Thomas back. And speaking of Michael Thomas, Michael, the guy at our flex, I'm going to spend some dough. Sorry, Michael, I've been the guy that's been spending a lot of money this.
I know, the tables have been reversed. This is an interesting side.
Michael Thomas is 7,600. You know, I know we have short memories, but look, the last time that we recall Michael Thomas was healthy was week 1. And in week 1, his price was $9,000. Nothing's changed except I think he's in a matchup that's as good as week 1 or better. And we get a $1,400 discount. Again, I have to ask, what is DraftKings doing? Michael Thomas is still Michael Thomas. So the only thing that we're going to make sure of is that he is not going to be limited at all, and he's completely healthy. If some reason is he's going to be limited, or certainly if he's out, look, if he's out, you've got to get Alvin Kamara back in the lineup. Fix this lineup so you force Alvin Kamara in it if Michael Thomas is out. But if Michael Thomas is going to play, but you're worried that he's going to be limited, there's other easy pivots in this flex spot. Dalvin Cook is at the exact same $7,600 price. If you want to make it work and go up $200 with Ezekiel Elliott, that's certainly a good option as well. But if we hear that Michael Thomas is a full participant in practices late this week and it looks to be 100%, we're going with Michael Thomas here. At defense, we are going to usually, Michael, we don't have any money and we're down at the bottom basement defense,
Oh yeah.
Trying to decide, do we want to pick the Lions or the Washington football team? But we were a little bit more responsible. Let me rephrase that. You were a little more responsible with your money. And
you, on the other hand, maybe not so much.
And we're going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs. It's all about game script to me, Michael. I think the Chiefs are going to look. The Chiefs are the best team in the NFL right now. They were the Super Bowl champions last year, and there's nothing that's happened in the first 3 weeks that tells me that they aren't the best team in the NFL. They're at home. I know New England's a good team, but I expect Kansas City to win and win, handily. And I think the game script is you're going to put New England in a situation where they're going to have to pass from behind. Cam Newton, I like the guy, but there are times he's very erratic. And if you put pressure on him, which the Chiefs have 10 sacks so far this year, Michael, I think this can lead into some good things happening for the Chiefs. So that's our cash game lineup. I want to put a little caveat here. 3 guys that Michael and I both like is the New England wide receivers. Because, again, we see that game as a game script where New England is going to be trying to pass from behind. And I think it's going to be a big day for their wide receivers. And they're all are economically priced. Edelman's at $5,700. N'Keal Harry is at $4,000. And a guy that you'll hear more about in a minute, Dimitri Bird, is $3,000. So if you agree with that and you want to change something in our lineup, feel free to slide one of those guys in for one of our guys.
Yeah, and as always, it's honestly better to come up with a lineup yourself first before you watch our show, or anyone's show, frankly, and then watch the show just to see if they say changes your mind, or if you think what they say, oh, I like my lineup better, then you can always stick with your lineup, because going directly with what someone says might not always be the best idea.
Yeah, that's such a good point, Michael, because you're not thinking. You're not thinking when you do that. So by going through the thought process before, you're not going to have groupthink, getting your own analysis, and then watching works much better. All right, let's go to GPP.
All right, guys, welcome to the GPP segment of this video. So, Eric, what made us go with the Cleveland at Dallas stack?
Well, it's all about the points. Highest over-under on the main slate at 55.5. So we're going to take advantage of that. Dak Prescott to his number one weapon, Amari Cooper, who, again, he actually hasn't scored a touchdown yet this year, but he's had 3 really solid games. He backs that up with a touchdown. He starts going to be returning GPP value. And coming back, Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah, Odell Beckham Jr. over the past 3 games has had 22 targets, and frankly, against the Dallas Cowboys' high-powered offense, the Browns aren't going to be able to sit back and just run the ball like they have been. They're going to have to drop back and throw, and that is why we went with Odell Beckham Jr., the number 1 receiver. All right, Eric, now for our running backs, Alvin Kamara and Mike Davis. What made you choose those?
All right, so Michael, no running back in the history of fantasy, I guess with the exception of Marshall Faulk one year, has had a better first 3 games than Alvin Kamara. And he faced a real tough defense in week 1 with Tampa Bay. But the reason he's gone off in the last 2 games, it's 2 reasons. Let's be clear. One is the team was coming from behind. And the second reason, no Michael Thomas. Now, he may get Michael Thomas back, and they're on the road against Detroit. They're small favorites. But I think this is going to be a competitive game where they're not just going to be melting the clock at the end. They're going to likely be fighting for this the entire game. Well, both for Mike Davis and Alvin Kamara, we're in DraftKings, full PPR. And look how many receptions Mike Davis has gotten over the last 2 weeks, right? 8 both times. That's a free 8 points right there. Not even counting yardage, not counting touchdowns. That's a free 8 points, right? And at 5,700, playing against Arizona up tempo, I'm happy with Mike Davis. I spent some money. The stack was expensive because of Dak Prescott, and Alvin Kamara was expensive. So to make this lineup work, you have to find a low-cost guy. At Bargain Basement, $3,000, playing in a game at Kansas City where New England, I believe, is going to pass, like they had to do against Seattle. And look what he did. 9 targets, 6 catches for 72 yards in that particular game script. Last week, it was impressive. He was on the field 66 of 69 snaps. He outsnapped N'Keal Harry and Julian Edelman last week. And at only $3,000, love it, Michael.
All right. And now the tight end, Mike Gesicki. What made you go with him? I mean, after all, he was the guy that last week made that incredible one-handed catch.
Miami's going to be passing the ball. But what I really like specifically about Mike Gesicki is his involvement around the goal line. He's tied for second of all tight ends inside the 10 targets with 4. We've been frustrated with Kenyan Drake this year. It's not due to his opportunities, meaning that he's seen touches so far this year of 18, 19, and 22. There's no harm on that. The problem is when they've gotten near the goal line, Kyler Murray's been the one running the ball in the end zone. But look at his matchup. I think this is the game. Facing Carolina, an absolute terrible defense, specifically a really bad run defense going back to last year. This could be the game. And remember, Michael, last year, Kenyan Drake had several really big games. The defense is the Texans. They're an amazing low-cost defense. They haven't done well this year, let's be honest. But they also have faced Kansas City, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh. 3 incredible offenses. And now they get Minnesota. They get Minnesota at home. They get Minnesota who they're favored over. And they get Minnesota who has Kirk Cousins, who's prone to make mistakes. So we're dropping Houston in the lineup. We want to once again thank all of our viewers. We greatly appreciate you watching our content and really appreciate when you use the comment section to give us your advice. Let's as a community help each other. Who are the picks that you guys like this week? What changes would you make to our lineup? And tell us the reasons why.
Yes, and also don't forget, for a place that can tell you anything that you need to know about DraftKings or FanDuel Daily Fantasy, check out Draft Dashboard. Use the link in the description below to get a $1 month trial.
And we also would like to remind you about our NFL DFS Masterclass, which is free on YouTube. We'll put the link on right now. Let's all be thankful that we've had 3 weeks of NFL football and pray that it continues. So until next week, when we'll hopefully have an update on all of the craziness that's been going on, we'll see you next time.